My name is Chris O'Leary, and I'm a survivor of the Catholic sex abuse crisis. In the late 70s, early 80s, here at the Church of the Immaculata in Richmond Heights, Missouri, a suburb of St. Louis, the Galleria Mall's just over my shoulder there, if you know St. Louis. I was sexually exploited, abused, and assaulted by a priest named Father Leroy Valentine. Abuse that started in the choir room, which is just over my shoulder here, one of the small vertical windows there. Abuse that continued in the back of the church here, the Church of the Immaculata in Richmond Heights. I wanted to comment on Missouri House Bill 367, which raises the age limit, basically the statute of limitations, from 31 to 41. A bill that is at best a half measure. Missouri House Bill 367 is a half measure. I've had some interactions with Representative Seitz over the past couple days. I don't want to throw him under the bus. I don't want to shoot the messenger. I have experienced that myself, and I don't want to be guilty of the same crime. But I am very frustrated with the process in Missouri, especially given what I've seen happening in other states. The survivor and child protective measures being put in place in other states. The state of Missouri is an embarrassment. 367, you can argue that 367 is going to make things better, but I would argue that it will actually make things worse, at least for Catholic survivors like me, who were victimized by the Catholic Church and its hierarchy. Men like my friend the Cardinal, Timothy Cardinal Dolan, the Archbishop of New York, who overlapped with my abuser, Father Leroy Valentine, for 2 years here at the Church of the Immaculata. Then Father Dolan knew of at least some of what Father Leroy Valentine was doing to us here at Immaculata. Abuse that, in my case, probably started in the church, in the back of the church during confession, progressed into the rectory over there over my shoulder, and then again moved back into the back of the church there. That's the sacristy there. That's the priest side of the sacristy over my shoulder here. Then Father, now Cardinal Timothy Dolan, knew at least something was going on. He kept his mouth shut, which is why he became auxiliary bishop, then bishop, then archbishop, and now Cardinal Timothy Dolan, the Archbishop of New York. The problem with Missouri House Bill 367 is that it rewards Cardinal Timothy Dolan and men like him for what they did, for the evil acts they perpetrated on top of my and our sexual abuse as children. It rewards men like Timothy Cardinal Dolan for what I'd call the abuse of the abused. I was sexually abused, exploited here in the rectory at Immaculata, here in the back of the church of Immaculata. But that was nothing compared to what Timothy Cardinal Dolan did to me in March 2002 in the aftermath of the Spotlight articles, which then were made into the movie Spotlight. My abuse started during confession here in the church, progressed on to special training, risk, and pizza parties here in the rectory at Immaculata, led to my being sexually exploited, abused, and assaulted in the back of the church in the Immaculata, ultimately raped here in the basement of the rectory of Immaculata. In March 2002, in the aftermath of Spotlight, an article ran in the New York Times naming my abuser, Father Leroy Valentine, as an abuser. Not understanding what in the world was going on, I called the Archdiocese of St. Louis and Auxiliary Bishop Dolan proceeded to lie to me. He gaslighted me telling me that my memories meant nothing, that nothing happened. That Father Valentine didn't do anything to me or to us. That then sent me on a 10-year wild goose chase. Which, to the point of Missouri House Bill 367, put me over the new limit that's established for the statute of limitations. The Catholic Church employed a strategy, dirty tricks, perpetrated by men like Timothy Cardinal Dolan, the Archbishop of New York, to basically send survivors like me on a wild goose chase. In my case, it took me 10 years from the age basically 35 to 45. It took me 10 years to understand what had happened to me here at Immaculata, and this is the school here. You know, most of what happened to me happened in the rectory, the basement of the rectory, the TV room of the rectory, or there in the church, in the back of the church in the sacristy. The problem with Missouri House Bill 367 is that it's at best a half measure. It doesn't take into account the actions of people like Timothy Cardinal Dolan, the lies and the gaslighting that were perpetrated upon me, and I know at least one other fellow survivor who was lied to by Cardinal Dolan. Lies that were told in an attempt to get us off the scent, to try to convince us that our memories didn't mean anything, which at a minimum served the purpose of creating problems with the statutes of limitation. The problem with Missouri House Bill 367 is that it doesn't take into account those dirty tricks campaigns perpetrated by the Catholic Church, by its bishops like Timothy Cardinal Dolan. The Catholic Church, at least, and I've met Logan, one of the Kanakuk survivors, and it sounds like he was subjected to a very similar process by Joe White and the folks at Kanakuk. These dirty tricks campaigns are designed to, at a minimum, create problems with the statutes of limitations, to push revelations about what happened to us out to serve a legal purpose of protecting the church, protecting Kanakuk, protecting other institutions from legal liability. The problem with Missouri House Bill 367 is it doesn't take into account those dirty tricks campaigns perpetrated by the Catholic Church, by Timothy Cardinal Dolan, by the folks at Kanakuk. 31 to 41 may seem like a significant jump, but it isn't in the light of these dirty tricks campaigns perpetrated by these large religious institutions. And it's not just these religious institutions that are the problems. Former Missouri Attorney General, now United States, Josh Hawley, participated in an effort to protect the Catholic Church in the Archdiocese of St. Louis, staging a sham investigation of the Archdiocese of St. Louis in 2018. I know because I tried to participate, and I know that Senator Hawley's investigation was a complete and utter sham. Also, former Missouri Attorney General, now United States Senator Eric Schmidt, staged a similar sham investigation of the Archdiocese of St. Louis. I know because I participated in that investigation. I didn't speak to anyone in an investigatory capacity under Hawley. Hawley was just a complete and utter sham. I did speak to an investigator for Schmidt's team twice, once in February 2019, second in July 2019. The problem with Schmidt's investigation is that I really got my act together and my story together and all my documentation together, which I think made a very devastating presentation implicating the Catholic Church, the Archdiocese of St. Louis, and my friend the Cardinal Timothy Dolan. The problem is that within days of my giving my testimony to then Missouri Attorney General, now United States Senator Eric Schmidt's team, this is late July 2019, Schmidt killed the investigation of the Archdiocese of St. Louis, wrapped things up. I believe it had to be related to my testimony and who my testimony implicated. It's those kinds of problems that are not reflected in Missouri House Bill 367, and which is why it's at best a half measure. You have to take into account the dirty tricks played by the Catholic Church, by Kanakuk, and also by former Missouri Attorney Generals Hawley and Schmidt. Schmidt's a Catholic. We were actually in the same parish for 20 years. Hawley, at least, was Catholic educated and sympathetic to the Catholic Church. For Missouri House Bill 367, or the following on bills to be effective, they have to take into account the dirty tricks campaigns perpetrated by the Catholic Church and its enablers. Enablers in law enforcement, in Missouri, and now United States federal government. Until those dirty tricks campaigns are taken into account, Catholic survivors will not be able to receive their justice. And worse, the Catholic Church and its bishops will continue to believe that they got away with the Catholic sex abuse crisis, spotlight and everything notwithstanding. They believe that they got away with it, that they were not subject to accountability. Nobody will talk about Timothy Cardinal Dolan. When I mentioned it to former Missouri Attorney General, now United States Senator Eric Schmidt's team, Schmidt killed the investigation within days. Until that lower level of culpability is addressed, not just for Catholic survivors, but for Kanakuk survivors and for all the other survivors in the state of Missouri, until those fundamental issues are addressed, until those dirty tricks campaigns, until the abuse of the abused is addressed, survivors will not be able to achieve justice and healing, and children in Missouri will not be safe. Catholic children will remain in danger, and not just Catholics and not just children.